Hey, how's it going? I watched my last video and I realized it seemed a bit dour. And for the content, I suppose I wasn't going to be talking about the beginning of the breakdown of my first half with smiles and sound effects. But I also wanted to make videos about the lessons I've learned in my midlife that are, a little bit lighter because there's both of that. Midlife transition has easily been one of the toughest times in my life, the most difficult by far. But I've learned so much and I've grown so much. And also, there's this immense relief, there's this immense joy when you work on the things that worked on you for so long. You take control, you get more freedom back, but you also have a bit more sense of humor. You can just let things go. When you get older, you can just be a little more laid back. You've you grow out of the pressure of trying to be someone, and you allow yourself to be who you are. I think is one of the greatest advantages of your second half and growing older, and how your 50s and 60s and 70s will be statistically better. There's some study out there. I haven't done the homework, but I know I've read it before where there's this sort of U curve. It's called the U curve of happiness, and people get happier the older they get. And that 40s are a rough time. It's true. It's totally true. But there is, there's just, I don't know how to describe it. You grow out of all those models that you had of yourself, and you can just be. I'm perfectly fine now when I'm reading and kind of doing this now. I'm like looking and I have to do that. I'm doing that now. I joke about my back and my knee, and I haven't, I want to look at a gym, and there's so many different factors that come with that. When I was younger, it was like, well, money and time. Now it's money and time, but now it's like, oh man, if I hurt myself, I'm going to be out for a while. Like, there's other things too. Looking back, yes, my midlife was tumultuous, but also it was a growing out of the limitations that I was given in my first half script of this is how a man is. This is how an adult is. This is how anything is really, like a son, a brother, an uncle, whatever that is. From my last video, there was this great shame of I was failing both ways. I was failing in the way that the typical life has lined up for you, right? In this little conveyor belt of like, this is where you get your partner. This is where you get your kids and your house and your home. And these are the things you complain about. And we're all doing this together. This is the game you play. And I failed that because I didn't do that. So I felt isolated in kind of in this outside world. But then I totally embraced my art, and you can watch the video. So, but what I realized was, oh, sorry, my nose is itchy. There is also joy and relief when you're tackling these things, especially through a therapist. And I'll talk about therapy in another video. But it's those moments where when you really face who you are and face these challenges, it just becomes lighter. It's not as serious, right? I've always been more of a dour, serious person. Melancholy, I like to put it. Melancholy is a superhero of mine. And it's where my art comes from. But there's also joy. There's also peace. There's also relief. There's a relief that you don't have to do what they say anymore, but also you can be yourself, and that's okay. And really it comes in stages. There's this idea of like, I'll be who I am, and that's okay. And you know, and then you have to go back to it because you try to be someone else, and there's always these different things. But it's just it's funny too. It's a drama, it's a tragedy, right? It's also a comedy. And to take a step back and really look at what you've done in your midlife, what I've done in my midlife. Yes, there are moments where it was dark, and it was scary, and it was frightening, and it was sad. And I'll go into those. Those will be part of the greatest hits, right? Because this is a playlist of the stories, my lessons from my midlife. But one lesson that comes up, and it was me rewatching that last video I made, where there were good parts too. There were growing pains, but there was growing, you know? And I just always go back to that word relief. There's a relief of, oh, I don't have to carry that anymore. An in-joke that me and my therapist always have, and I say it sometimes unconsciously, and we'll have a big laugh about it, is I said in the very beginning, and it came out of this place of loss and of confusion and frustration. And she was talking about something, another option, because when you go to therapy, when you work on, or coaching, anything when you're working with someone on self-work or by yourself, there's this immense relief because you have options now. And a line that came from that was, oh, I didn't know I can do that. You know, like there's this, you were looking for like this permission of like, yes, you can do that now. And I think it was looking for like equally emotional. I was looking for equally emotional people out there, emotionally mature people out there. Because I've lived and been around with people that were not the most emotionally mature, you know, whether it's family, roommates, whatever. It was, you know, and no shade on them. I mean, we're all coming this at different angles, right, in different paths. But every now and then, I even worked with ChatGPT the other day. And I started to like work on some of this stuff that I'm doing with my business, and Chat gave me an answer. I almost wrote down like, I didn't know you could do that. You can do that? You can, yeah, of course you can. And this is part of the reason why I'm doing these videos now. There was a point where I didn't think I can do this. And I think in my 20s, and you'll see this too, and you'll feel this hopefully, there's just some things that you're doing now naturally in your 40s and then 50s and 60s, coming from working on yourself that you never would have done in your 20s. You know, in my 20s, I could never, because I had in my head that I'm this way, right? This is the game I'm playing. These are the rules. This is the person I am. I simply just can't flick on a switch and just, you know, talk in front of a camera. That's insane. I would never do that. Why would I do that? That's not the type of person I am. And then somewhere along the lines, it comes in stages. I can't do that, right? And then it's like, well, maybe I can do that, but probably not. And then, okay, I guess I can do that. And then I'm doing that. And then there's the fifth one. And it's always the same thing, no matter what I'm doing. If it feels natural, if it comes from a natural place, that fifth thing is always there. And it's, I've been doing this, or it was always there. And I want you to sit and think about that. There's the, I can never do that. I can't do that. Maybe I could do that, but I'll fail. I'm doing that now. I've always been doing that. Or it's always been there, right? Your best self. You're there. I say best self, I say true self, but it's who you always were. And somehow, all along those lines, you lost yourself. I lost myself along the way. And it was a big lost. Like, and there were good parts of all this lostness. But I'll end with this. There's a relief that comes from working on yourself because you've reconnected with yourself. You've rediscovered something of yourself, whether it's going back to an art form or reconnecting with a part of yourself, music, or that person who you are. This all comes in stages. Midlife transition work comes in stages. Transition work comes in stages. But really, this is a key opportunity to really do something for yourself in an important and authentic way. It's just a relief to finally find again. You know, it's like connecting with that old friend, you know, an older part of yourself. Maybe it's a child part of yourself. Maybe it's a teenage part of yourself. Or maybe it's a self that you started connecting with, and you just lost touch with it. And if anything else, you don't have to do all this work. You don't have to go into therapy if you don't want to. But understand that that part of yourself is always there, and that's the key to growth. That's the key to transformation. That's the key to joy and happiness and relief and loving yourself. I love myself now more in some cases than I've ever loved myself. And it's not one person, place, thing, or idea that kept me from there. If it's anything, it's what I call the machinery. It's consumerism. It's, I don't know what it is. It's just, I call the machinery anything out there that keeps you from your own humanity. It uses you as an it, right? As a product or as an object. It's racism, it's sexism, homophobia, it's all these things. There's this system out there. And it's partly our own brains trying to keep us safe and keep us fearful and keeping us comfortable, whatever that might be. I'm going off the rails a bit. But what I want you to remember is it's all in you. And there is a relief and a joy and a sense of humor that comes about going through this that I think you need to embrace as well. And it is dour, it can be dark, and of course there's that aspect as well. But there's a relief from not living this script anymore. There's a big relief from that. I love that. So you're going to find joy. You're going to find relief. You're going to find a sense of humor. You're going to find all of this a bit absurd. And it's all connected to, it's in there. It's in you. You can find things outside, and I'll go over this over and over. It'll be a broken record, but there are things out there that can help you unlock that. But I think it's this constant shedding of the things we don't need to get to something and reconnect ourselves with who we really are and who we always were down there, all along, up there, down there, whatever. So, lesson I've learned from my midlife is that it's going to be okay. It is okay. You are okay. But sometimes you just forget it, and you forget it over and over again. You have to kind of rediscover that. But I want to add more of these relief moments, and you're going to get that both with this playlist and with this channel. You're going to get what I call the twin dragons of Eros and Thanatos, right? Of love and of fear, of hope and of desperation, right? You have these both working and intertwining together, because that's all of who we are, and because that's all of who I am, right? So anyway, I hope you're well today. I hope you're safe today, and I hope that you'll find a little bit of joy, a little bit of humor, a little bit of happiness that you're going to get more and more as you live through this transition. So take care. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.